who have been registered for participation, and they have been there at COP27 venue, participating in side events or in the pavilion meetings, or just organizing informal meetings with delegates or monitoring the negotiations. So there is this climate activists who are also there. So the whole the entire this community is referred to as civil society. But interestingly, COP27 at COP27, where civil society role has been acknowledged as one of the theme days. In the very same COP27, there are accusations that Egypt and the Egyptian government has not allowed people to participate, and in some places they have been taken out of the meetings, and so most have been under surveillance of police or whoever, intelligence people. In fact, when Joe Biden spoke, he came to COP27 recently, and while he was speaking, at least 4 people, they just demonstrated a flag asking for a fossil fuel treaty, so something like that, and they were taken away from the hall, and then their badges were taken away, which means that they are not able to access some of the venues of negotiations or discussions or meetings. So it looks like a dichotomous situation or contradictory situation where civil society role has been epitomized, and yesterday a lot of events everyone started saying civil society is required and very critical, all those things, but so some of the events do not encourage or give confidence that that has been taken into implementation or in terms of practical action. Coming to actually what happened with COP27, basically there have been, as I mentioned yesterday and today, national statements were given by Vice President, Deputy Prime Ministers who did not attend November 7th and 8th high-level segment. So some of them have had an opportunity to read out the national statements yesterday, and I think it will continue today as well. Then on Energy Day, yesterday was also Energy Day. So there were a few events day before yesterday on 14 November and also on 15 November. So energy, organizations working on energy, electricity, coal, and also thermal, nuclear energy. I think most of them were there. And of course, the International Energy Agency is one of the civil society organizations there. And there, this International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA Director General was also there. There were a few events conducted. So the discussion, of course, was about how to move towards renewable energy. But still, I know it was surprising that not much of the proposals have come through this side events or on the theme day on energy, because considering that energy is the critical part and mostly very high concern contribution for carbon emissions is coming from energy sector. So yesterday, it appeared that not much focus has happened on energy because of contribution or because of its criticality in addressing global warming. So I don't know what is the reason, but probably one reason is everyone has accepted most of the you know uh, uh, formulations with regard to the change which has to happen in energy sector. But I think a lot more areas are not being discussed, and I don't know if we go through the workshop material or the seminars which were organized, maybe we'll understand what kind of discussions have happened and to what depth these discussions have gone to. Especially, when you're talking of energy, we have seen that recently. We have seen European Union backing out of its earlier position to phase out thermal power production, just because their energy security was upset by this war between Russia and Ukraine, and Russian supplies to European Union have been upset because of this war, and then the politics over that war. So, and of course, this the even the IPCC or any scientific body, they have not yet looked into this basic problem of maintaining base load, because renewable energies, they appear to be more of a alternatives or supplementary energy sources rather than ensuring a base load which now continues to come through either hydel energy or thermal energy. So I think this challenge has still not been looked from a scientific point of view, or from the point of view of negotiations. So I think we need to see if what kind of formulations are still being made. And then yesterday there was this big news that seven governments, developed countries, they have pledged new funding for least developed countries fund, LDCF, and a special climate change fund, and that is now total. This new funding totals $105.6 million, and this goes to smaller countries like Tuvalu and Vanuatu, and small, very even island nations, and as per their definition as least developed countries. And the donor countries include Denmark, Finland, Germany, Ireland, Slovenia, Sweden, and Switzerland. So they have pledged support under this for this low-lying and low-income states targeting climate adaptation. So I think somewhere this concern which is being raised by small island nation is addressed with this new pledge. Of course, this is only a pledge. We are not sure how how and when this gets translated into reality for those countries. So we need to say, because past experience shows that finance has been pledged but not realized. So, and additionally, these two funds, they mentioned least developed countries climate fund, and then the Special Climate Change Fund. These two funds have received political support from Belgium, Canada, France, and United States, along with the European Union. Now, this is a mechanism basically which received support from almost all the developed countries. But somewhere I think there might be some political angle to this because there is now discussion going on whether to have a separate facility for loss and damage finance, and developed countries have been opposing that. So basically, to I think deflect criticism on developed countries, probably they have signaled support for this, LDCF and Special Climate Change Fund. Uh, so that is one is it will deflect the criticism, and also because this is a very small, if you look at it, it's only in millions. On the other hand, for loss and damage, the estimate is running into $1 trillion. So I think this way, the countries which are expecting finance is now will eventually get divided because least developed countries will be obviously get satisfied with this pledge. So that will take away the support, the large support which is coming from developing countries for loss and damage finance. So there is definitely a political dimension to this development yesterday. Now, importantly, yesterday G20 started at Indonesia and Bali, and under the chairmanship of India. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi is there in Indonesia. They are discussing, of course, food security, health, and energy, and various other subjects which are related to what is happening in COP27. So again, the timing of this G20 probably also indicates that instead of holding discussions under the overall ambit of COP, so these countries have organized a separate meeting, but somewhere their discussions are related to their positions in COP27. So yesterday, one of the announcement which was made by John Kerry in COP27, but it was attributed to a meeting of G20 leaders in Bali. So this decision is very significant because US, Japan, and other countries, they offered Indonesia $20 billion to control its reliance on fossil fuel, especially coal. Indonesia is a very big consumer of coal, and also it has a lot of mines, and it draws its income from exporting coal. Of course, there are other sectors as well, but this $20 billion fund, which has been announced yesterday by G20 leaders, is going to help Indonesia to transition from fossil fuel based energy production and also economy to non-fossil fuel based energy production. So that dependence is expected to be reduced. So and as part of this, in fact, they announced $10 billion over 3 to 5 year plan. So it's not just one time, 1 year fund, but out of that $10 billion will be utilized in the next 3 to 5 years under the plan. And the rest of the funds are expected to come from private sector. So this will be private finance. and that again, it comes through Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, GFANS. This was a group which was established in Glasgow COP 26, and it includes at least 500 financial institutions, banks, and other financial institutions. It is the public finance is $10 billion and private finance is $10 billion out of this. This again is should be under discussion because of this structuring of this funds, because how this will ensure the continuation of the economic hold over Indonesian trade in the exports and trade. So I think this ensures that. So again, there is a political dimension to such announcement. Now, there was this first high-level ministerial roundtable on pre-2030 ambition, as I mentioned yesterday. On 14th November, there was this meeting, and on 15th November also, this roundtable was organized. And on 14th November, Indian Environment Minister Bhupender Yadav spoke at this roundtable, and he questioned what does pre-2030 mean, and he said it should include a pre-2030 historical pollution and not just limit to this pre-20, post-2020 and pre-2030. So there was the suspicion that this roundtable on pre-2030 ambition, why and how of it has been raised. But anyway, on 15 November, they extended the discussions, and everyone agreed that we need to ramp up ambition to reach the climate goals and limit global temperature to 1.5 degrees centigrade. So this is the first time again, I think, at a ministerial level, 1.5 degrees centigrade temperature has come back as a red line or as a target. Even though this was only discussions and views were raised about the ambition, how to increase the ambition to reduce the carbon emissions or set higher goals than what has been pledged in Paris Agreement and in subsequent COPs. So there was this exchange of views, but ultimately not much. There is no consensus on. There's no text which has been shared on for consensus. So the president, COP27 president, said an informal note will be circulated based on the views expressed yesterday at this high-level ministerial roundtable. As you might know, there are several ministers who are there at COP27, and these ministers are supposed to, bring this political, negotiations and come up with a cover decision. This cover decision is basically something as an outcome of COP27. So this roundtable on pre-2030 ambition, I think it has helped in sharing of the views, but we need to see if these views will be accepted, and then a formulation comes out of those views. And again, on 15th September, there was this discussion organized by the COP27 president And one of the discussion was this on cover decisions. As I mentioned, by the end of this COP27, a cover decision will be announced, and ministers are there discussing that. So, what should be in the cover decision was yesterday consultations were done on that. So, a few ideas were shared. So, one is, strong sentiment came that since this is implementation COP, so the cover decision has to infuse implementation into the COP processes was mentioned. Then this equity and common but differentiated responsibilities. This is a broad concept which accepts equity under differentiated responsibility. That means it's not, even though equity and commonality is being talked about, it also means that everyone is has a same responsibility. So differentiated responsibility means probably historically polluting countries will have more responsibility and the small countries will have less responsibility to this. So this, integrating this again into the cover decision was suggested yesterday. Then recognizing implementation gaps. I think this was also identified because once it gets identified in the cover decision, that can become a part of the agenda as this COP process moves forward, even if it is going to be if it is discussed in COP28 next year. So that was another idea. But then everyone focused on implementing all aspects of Glasgow Climate Pact. So Glasgow, at the end of Glasgow COP26, there was a kind of pact which was announced. So there, there were four aspects which are very important. One is phasing down coal. Basically, phase out is the phrase we understand normally. But for the first time in Glasgow, they said it is phased down. Of course, phasing down is what it means is not understood uniformly, but it was explained that phasing down is about gradual reduction in coal usage and consumption. Second is reducing methane emissions. So Glasgow was very particular about this. So this, it is expected that this cover decision at the end of COP27 should include this, and also supporting just transition. Just transition is basically just as a not as an adjective but as a noun, basically bringing in equity, equality, and a justiciable transition. That means everyone has to participate with voluntary consent rather than mandatory or forced consent. So transition has to be planned in a justifiable, justiciable way. And of course, adaptation finance. So these aspects came from Glasgow Climate Pact, and suggestion was that they should be implemented. They should be implemented, and it should include in the cover decision. And of course, 1.5 degrees centigrade as a red line has been mentioned in this meeting as well. So I think some people are trying to pull back, any negotiations to 1.5 degrees centigrade. If you remember, in the last 1 week, the way discussions were happening, it was happening as if I think everyone accepted 1.5 degrees, and we are moving towards 2 degrees centigrade. And when implementation of COP, the Together for Implementation was announced for this COP, people thought, okay, there is now no further focus on higher ambitions, but limited to Paris pledge on reducing the carbon emissions. So when someone is trying to bring back 1.5 degrees centigrade, I think it again is trying to reflect this as a target in the implementation uh, agenda of COP27. And of course, there have been additional ideas on technology mechanism, ending the expansion of new fossil fuel production. As we have been discussing, most countries, they have been pledging goals, and they are calling for, reduction in fossil fuel, but they are going back and announcing new projects. That we have seen in the case of US, Britain, Australia, and other countries. So I think there is a call, there is a idea which was mentioned that this cover decision at COP27 should, call for ending the expansion of new fossil fuel production, phasing out and or phasing down of oil and gas extraction. This again, India has reflected this because India is saying why you're targeting only coal and not other fossil fuels, because developed countries, their dependence on coal is less and more on oil and gas extraction. That's one point which is being made. But on the other hand, developing countries are dependent on coal. That's why they are concerned about phasing out of coal. So this again, this is a slight conflicting area of interest. So that's why this words phasing out or phasing down oil and gas extraction is also has been suggested for inclusion in the cover decision. And establishing loss and damage response fund, inviting into IPCC to prepare a special report on adaptation, because global stock take process is there, but I think this idea shows that there is not much confidence that a global stock take process will give a big picture, a good picture of adaptation. And yeah, this standing committee on finance, they thought requesting standing committee on finance to prepare a report on indebtedness due to climate change. So now many countries are indebted. Their debt levels is very high, and it was a good idea to suggest that a report be prepared of all the countries and what kind of debts they have accumulated because of climate change. So, for example, Pakistan had a huge flood recently, and because for flood relief or whatever reason, I think Pakistan might have raised debt from China or any other country. So those kind of debts have to be prepared as a report, or even Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka has gone into a debt spiral because of the recession which came up because of disturbance caused by pandemic, and also the global trade logistics have gone completely haywire because of lockdown or natural disasters. Then, of course, some suggestion came that this cover decision should express disappointment at developed countries failure to reach $100 billion climate finance goal. So these are all there, and someone said that we should exclude multilateral development banks out of the reference private sector nature-based solutions, because nature-based solutions are ultimately, I think, is enabling a continuation of emissions rather than reduction in emissions. So they said that these nature-based solutions has to be removed from cover decision, and I think there were other suggestions. So a substantive written text will come later, maybe today, and that consultation will happen. So by 19th or 18th the November evening, I think there should be a draft cover decision, and we need to see how many of these ideas will be get reflected in that cover decision. The stock taking plenary has also happened, and for the first time again, they have now proposed at least four ministerial consultations on stock taking. So the COP president, the COP27 president announced, for five, you know, ministerial consultation on different topics like mitigation work program. This will be chaired by ministers Barbara Crecy from South Africa and Dan Georgeson from Denmark. And second ministerial consultation will be on global goal on adaptation, chaired by Amina Shauna from Maldives and Teresa Rivera from Spain. Finance, finance, particularly the new collective quantified goal, chaired by Bhupender Yadav from India and Chris Bowen from Australia. So Article 6, another consultation was announced. Finance for loss and damage was also announced, and it will be chaired by a minister from Chile and also from Germany. So these five ministerial consultations will happen today and probably in the next 3 days, and they will feed into a stock taking plenary, and I think those discussions will go into the cover decisions. So I think this is again a very significant step which I have not seen in COP26. Maybe it was there in earlier COPs, but I thought this is a very, now the consultation process has been broadened and more people have been given important tasks. So I think that's very significant. I'll just refer to three other developments. Yesterday again, the long-term finance was discussed. A revised draft decision text was placed before the members and they discussed, but there was no agreement. And importantly, Coronivia joint work on agriculture. For the past few COPs, I think there is increasing pressure to start working on agriculture. Whatever partnerships announced were basically a partnership between developed countries and corporate companies. So people are rejecting that, and there is now more hopes are being raised about this Coronivia joint work on agriculture. So a new published text was shared yesterday. There was some discussions, but I think there is no, they are not come to any agreement. So there in the meeting, one observer reminded parties of the need to ensure food security, ecosystem integrity, biodiversity conservation, and sustainable land use. So these aspects were reminded, so the parties were reminded of these aspects by observer, a civil society observer. So hopefully, I think again in the next 2-3 days, this KJWA is going to come up with a text which will again become a cover decision. Now, another aspect which I thought was significant, of course, there were other work programs, but this framework for non-market approaches, which were referred under Article 6.8 of the Paris Agreement. So again, there was a new draft decision text, and views were expressed, but there is no consensus. So basically, today, tomorrow, and probably day after, all these work programs, they have to submit a consensual text, and that will feed into a cover decision, which can be announced as the COP27 cover decision. So ministers were saying these technical negotiations should get completed as early as possible, so that ministers can sit and finalize on the text. So that will mean more of political negotiations. So there, I think we'll see this, jostling between the positions. So trade-off, it will include trade-off as well, because okay, you accept this and I'll accept yours. So that kind of trade-off will probably come up in political negotiations. So that means the technical negotiations have to get completed, and it seems yesterday and day before this work program, they have been sitting even into late evenings and night to complete this process. But differences are very sharp. I think there are still a lot of pessimism. Basically, people are expressing that whether anything will come out of it, because people are the delegates themselves, when they are talking informally to journalists or various other people, they are not sure that something will emerge out of this COP27. But still, we need to see another, I think, 3-4 days, something might emerge. So that means it could be a surprise. So we are not sure. Coming to, yesterday again, the United Nations announced, I think this is again, it's not part of COP27, but it is related to this climate change negotiation. So UN yesterday announced that the world population has reached 8 billion. So this is, if you, in 1927, it was 2 billion, and now in 2022, it has reached 8 billion. And there is expectation that it will grow, but the growth will be very slow. So the next 1 billion, from 8 billion to 9 billion, it will take another 50 years, 15 years, 1 5. And from 9 to 10 billion, it will take another 22 years. So overall, to hit 10 billion, it will take at least 37 years to happen. So the growth rate is coming down, but still there is growth in population, and the growth rate is uneven around the world. So it's not the same across the world. In many places, it has fallen drastically, and in some countries, it is growing. So the UN report says that about 70% of the recent growth happened in low and lower middle income countries, and most of which are in sub-Saharan Africa. So that means African population is going to increase. Maybe Asian growth is there, but over a period it will decrease. But this has implications on many things, because one is, Africa itself will be under a lot of strain because of this growth of population, because the natural resources consumption will increase, and it will have repercussions. So ultimately, I think climate change negotiations somewhere have to factor in this population growth as well. Uh, there are, as I mentioned yesterday, I mentioned there are 13 issues which have been pending, but now today, I mean, on 15th November, by the end of the evening, people thought that now pending issues are increasing. So the issues which have become remained unresolved, their number is increasing. So I think that is where the concern is being raised about whether COP27 will come out with a cover decision. And of course, Glasgow also, it was the same. Even until the last minute, there was not much hope, and only late into the night in the last day, some cover decision was announced. So that's how phase down of coal was announced. So overall, I think this COP27 process is not as enthusiastic as earlier COPs, because people were expecting a lot, but I don't think those expectations are being met even halfway, not even halfway. I think it's not even a primary, even at the primary level, they are not being met. Uh, this I think I found it very significant because now a few nations, especially least developed countries, they formed a climate vulnerable forum. So these are the countries which are facing this sea level rise and frequent disasters. So which includes Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Ghana, Senegal, Costa Rica, and Philippines, some countries like that. So they formed this forum, and now they have published prosperity plans. So laying out what they want money to be spent on, especially to stop climate change impacting on their economic development. So these prosperity plans have been published as per the news. So I know we need to see what are these plans and how it is going to stop climate change from impacting on economic development. So I think this is of academic interest, and also as well as its potential to give more ideas on how to address climate change integrated with economic development. Now, as I mentioned, there was this announcement about 17 countries which have announced that they are going to address biodiversity as part of a 10-point plan. So there is a 10-point plan which was developed to prioritize climate and biodiversity, given that biodiversity loss has been flagged. But biodiversity is as a word or as a concept or as an idea or as a solution, it's still not coming into the COP. So these 17 countries who have pledged or committed to invest in solutions, I think as part of their 10-point plan, I think we need to see what is this plan, which are the countries, and what kind of investments are being proposed. I think we need to see all that. So there are people who express that it is possible to dismantle fossil fuel industry by 2030. So next, within 80 years, we can dismantle fossil fuel industry. But for that to happen, leaders should actually discuss it without fossil fuel lobbies sitting in the room. As you might remember, out of the 33,000 registered delegates, at least 600 are have been identified as being fossil fuel lobbies who have become part of the different country delegations, and they are sitting along with others in negotiation. So they are seen as blocking, action on fossil fuels or dismantling fossil fuels. So their role continues to be under focus. Now, there are some few assessments done by people who have been attending a lot of COPs, and their assessment shows that COP27 is not going in the right direction. So, especially at G77, in a group of countries, most of the developing countries, they were expecting finance. So this finance, continues to elude a decision at COP27. Especially, they are bogged down at definition is one aspect. Second, I think rich countries they want China also to be part of this contribution, as a financing country. Somewhere India is also being uh, asked to be part of this. So I think we need to see uh, this G77, how they react to this the entire direction of the discussion. And of course, yeah, yesterday again, this as part of this, ministerial national statements, Marshall Islands. It's a very small country, I think, Caribbean nation, and the minister, his name is Silk. He delivered a statement at COP27. He says, "Let me be clear. We did not want a loss and damage funding. We did not want adaptation funding. We need it now because mitigation efforts have been asked for decades and have not been made." So he's clearly saying that, yeah, LDCs, because there is this viewpoint that least developed countries and developing countries are just trying to monetize their loss and damage by keeping on harping on funds. So this statement says that, and we never asked for that funding earlier, but we are asking it now because you have not taken up a mitigation effort, that is reducing emissions. So since you have not done that, now we are asking her. So that means the polluter, like what we see in general with industrial polluters, people usually ask reduction in pollution. And as they don't heed to that request, then they ask for compensation because you are continuing to pollute the atmosphere. So I think this is what this minister from Marshall Islands is reflecting. Yesterday, significantly, today, the Guardian has published editorial, and this same editorial was published by 30 media organizations from 20 countries, and this includes the Hindu. So maybe you can check the editorial. I'll show you that as well. And this editorial calls upon world leaders to take immediate action, and also calls for imposing climate tax on fossil fuel companies. So this editorial, I think, is again signaling that media is also now trying to play its role in climate change negotiations and climate action. But that's at the international level, and that too only 30 media organizations are there. I think we are glad to know that the Hindu in India is there. But again, as we discussed earlier, Indian media is not giving the primacy to COP27 as much as it should have been doing. So, and of course, in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, Telugu media is again completely ignoring this critical negotiations. So, I think our efforts to increase awareness have to go even into media as well. Even though we have organized the last three times media and climate change webinars, but still, unfortunately, journalists and media is way behind in reporting or covering these activities. So tomorrow it is it will, today basically is 16th November, it will be Biodiversity Day. And I think a lot of activities will happen on that. Now let me share more information. So this, again a wish list. I just thought we again go through that. The wish list which has been put forward by Eco Warriors. So they are saying if COP27 countries are serious, they would ban all new oil and gas coal drilling. So the mining and drilling will be stopped, banned. They should ban all fossil fuel subsidies, ban all deforestation, ban draining wetlands, ban private jets, ban new airports and road expansions. I think in India and especially in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, we are seeing this Bharat Mala project. There are a number of roads are being widened, and some are greenfield roads. Greenfield is very new roads are being being laid, including regional ring road around Hyderabad. Most of these are done without any assessment and their role in the economic development, and that leads to a lot of destruction of biodiversity, environment, and also precious fertile agricultural lands also are lost to that. So that's why this call is being coming for ban new airports and road expansions. Ration air travel. So air travel has been identified as one of the major sources of carbon emissions. So they said ration air travel. So this, I think, in short, it gives us a perspective of what has to be done, but none of this may not happen in COP27. I think that is, yeah, that's what is a disappointment. Now, this, as we have been discussing loss and damages funds, so there is this report by Carbon Brief, which says that some $300 million have been pledged by rich nations on loss and damage, but most of it is going to Global Shield. This is an insurance-based German mechanism, Global Shield. So most of the funding is going to that as well, but not directly to the LDCs. So to research, it is very low. early warning systems is much more lower. So I think this again reflects, when we are asking for a solutions, somewhere within the solutions, this structuring is happening, which does not lead to this a comprehensive solution. So I think that's why we need to critically evaluate all the solutions. So like yesterday, India has submitted a LT, a long-term, low emissions development strategy. So now every country is asked to do that LT-LED strategy. So there, India is talking about biofuels. Unfortunately, most of the civil society observers from India working on climate change, they happily welcomed it, and they have glossed over this problem of biofuels and why biofuels is not a solution. So I think critical evaluation is required at every stage. So this girl, 11-year-old girl, this is Lysipriya Kanjugam. She is from Delhi. Actually, she is from Orissa. So they shifted to Delhi, and she is there at COP27 on her own. She it seems she has collected donations, and then she is there, and she is saying we can build pyramids, we can find COVID vaccine, we can send a man to moon, but we can't still solve the climate crisis. And she says this is because our leaders don't have the political will. So she is now directly targeting political will as a young climate activist. So there are solutions, where with regard to joint work on agriculture. So they are saying to support agroecology, you need to redirect funding to small, grassroots organizations, support female leadership, and ensure long-term collaboration, ensure joint decision making instead of a top-down approach, and accessible and responsive funding, and through small grant funds. Instead of giving big funds, you give to number of small organizations small grant funds, so that it is more online or on par with the local people conditions. This is, as part of this Indian strategy, which was shared. In fact, this strategy document I could not access so far. I don't know if it is there on the public domain, but it was submitted to COP27. So this is one of the pictures which was shared by the persons associated with that strategy development. This is very small, we can't see, but this basically tries to eulogize, praise this strategy, so which is spanning across transport, industry, carbon dioxide removal, all those things. So I think this needs to be analyzed further in India from an Indian perspective, and also from the global perspective of how it will reduce or meet or enable India to meet its goals announced at Paris, or which are revised later as well. So this is again a statement coming from Carbon Brief, which says climate change could easily become the dominant driver of cross-species virus transmission by 2070. So this is the first time we are looking at how biodiversity loss and the consequences of this virus world, what is happening in the virus world, is coming for the first time. If some of you remember during COVID-19 pandemic, it was mentioned that this is in fact a result of lab testing or lab research being done at Wuhan. So it is called gain function. Basically, research is being done to gain of function research. So they said the virus is being researched to increase its functioning, basically becoming a aerosol a virus. So this concern now about virus transmission can become a problem is because of human activity has been expressed. So this is the editorial which I mentioned, which was published in Guardian, and this was published in at least 20. Same content was published in 30 media organizations across the world from 20 organizations. So these are the media organizations which are involved. You can see here the Hindu from India. So this is only one from India, and all of the others are from different countries. This, I think, I thought of showing you for the past, I think, almost 10 days. This is the sewage flowing through the venue has been pointed out, and this is again the latest. You can see. So people are jumping over that sewage overflow, which is flowing through the venue of COP27. So somewhere it indicates the management problems at COP27. So I'll stop here and see if there are any questions. Otherwise, again, I'll నిన్న 15 నవంబర్ 2022 నాడు COP27లో చర్చలు కొనసాగుతున్నాయి. పోయిన వారం కొన్ని అంటే ఈ చర్చల సారాంశం మీద, అంగీకారాల మీద పత్రాలు తయారు చేశారు, కానీ వాటి మీద పూర్తిగా అందరికీ ఒక కాన్సెన్సస్ లేకపోవడంతో ఈ వారం కూడా వాటి మీద చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయి అనేక విషయాల మీద. అయితే అందులో ప్రధానంగా నిధుల గురించి, అభివృద్ధి చెందిన దేశాలు చిన్న దేశాలకు లేదా ఈ ప్రకృతి వైపరీత్యాల బారిన పడి నష్టపోతున్న దేశాలకు లాస్ అండ్ డ్యామేజ్ కింద నిధులు ఇవ్వాలని ఒత్తిడి పెరుగుతుంది. అది ఇప్పుడు ఈ COP27 కూడా ఈజిప్ట్లో, అంటే ఆఫ్రికన్ దేశంలో జరుగుతుంది. మరి అక్కడ జరుగుతున్నప్పుడు కూడా కనీసం ఆఫ్రికా పరిస్థితి అర్థం చేసుకొని ప్రపంచం స్పందించాలని వారు కోరుతున్న నేపథ్యంలో ఈ చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయి. అయితే ఇందులో ఇంకా రాజకీయ కోణాలు, మాకేం వస్తుంది, మాకేం నష్టం వస్తుంది అని అంచనాలు వేసుకుంటూ ప్రతి దేశము జాగ్రత్తగా తన యొక్క అభిప్రాయాలు కానీ, తమ యొక్క పొజిషన్ కానీ అక్కడ చెప్తున్నారు, మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. కానీ దాంతో ఇప్పటికీ ఒక యూనిఫామిటీ ఇంకా రాలేదు అక్కడ. అది ఇంకా 3-4 రోజుల్లో వస్తుందా లేదా అనే అనుమానం కూడా స్పష్టంగా ఉంది. అయితే నిన్న 2 ప్రధానమైన అనౌన్స్మెంట్లు జరిగినాయి. అందులో ఒకటి ఏంటంటే G20 కంట్రీస్ సమావేశం ఇండోనేషియాలో జరుగుతుంది ఇదే సమయంలో, నిన్న మొదలైంది. అక్కడ ఈ అమెరికా, బ్రిటన్ లాంటి దేశాలు, జపాన్ వీళ్ళందరూ కలిసి ఇండోనేషియా దేశానికి ఒక $20 బిలియన్ నిధులు సమకూర్చుతామని ప్రకటన చేశారు. ఈ ప్రకటన ఎందుకు అంటే $20 బిలియన్ ఎందుకంటే ఇండోనేషియా దేశము బొగ్గు ఆధారిత దేశం కాబట్టి వాళ్ళను బొగ్గు ఉపయోగం నుంచి మళ్లించడానికి ఈ $20 బిలియన్ ఉపయోగపడతాయని వాళ్ళు భావిస్తున్నారు. అయితే ఈ $20 బిలియన్ కూడా దే ప్రభుత్వ నిధులు అందులో కేవలం $10 బిలియన్, ఇంకో $10 బిలియన్ ప్రైవేట్ ఫైనాన్స్ నుంచి వస్తాయని చెప్పారు. సో ఇది ఇదైతే ప్రకటన వచ్చింది కానీ ఇది ఎంతవరకు సాకారం అవుతుంది అనేది వేచి చూడాల్సిందే. ఎందుకంటే ఇదివరకు కూడా పోయిన సంవత్సరం కూడా ఇట్లా అవి ఇస్తాం అని ప్రకటనలు వచ్చాయి కానీ నిధుల విడుదల కానీ నిధుల జారీ కానీ జరగలేదు. సో ఇది ఇప్పుడు చేస్తే జరుగుతుందని ఆశిద్దాం. ఇక రెండవది ఒక 30 చిన్న దేశాలు, అతి చిన్న దేశాలు, ద్వీపకల్పాలు అన్నీ కలిపి వాళ్ళు ఏ దేశంకి ఆ దేశము ప్రణాళికలు తయారు చేసుకుంటున్నాయి ప్రాస్పరిటీ ప్లాన్స్ కింద. అంటే వీటిని ఈ లాస్ అండ్ డ్యామేజ్ నిధుల ప్రక్రియతో ముడిపెట్టడానికి ఈ ప్రణాళికలు తయారు చేస్తున్నారు. ఇది కూడా మంచి పరిణామం. ఎందుకంటే ఇది సాధారణంగా ఇట్లాంటి పనులలో అభివృద్ధి చెందిన దేశాలు ఉంటాయి, లేదా వాళ్ళకి అక్కడ ఏర్పాటు చేసిన ఈ థింక్ ట్యాంకులు లేదా స్వచ్ఛంద సంస్థలు వాళ్ళు వీళ్ళ కొరకు తయారు చేసి ఇవ్వడం లాంటి పనులు ఉంటాయి. సో ఇది ఏది కాకుండా ఆ దేశాలే వాళ్ళే తయారు చేసుకుంటున్న నేపథ్యంలో దాని కొంత ప్రజల యొక్క అభిష్టము, ప్రజల యొక్క ఆకాంక్షలు ప్రతిబింబిస్తాయని నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను. చూద్దాం అది ఎట్లాంటి ప్రణాళికలు ఉన్నాయి అనేది. ఇక ఇప్పుడు అక్కడ COP27లో 2 రకాల చర్చలు జరుగుతున్నాయి. ఒకటేమో సాంకేతిక చర్చలు, అంటే సాంకేతిక అంటే శాస్త్ర సాంకేతికత కాదు, సాధారణంగా ఏ అంశం మీద ఎట్లాంటి ప్రక్రియ ఉండాలి, ఆ ప్రక్రియలో ఏమేమి అంశాలు ఉండాలి, లేదా నిధులు వస్తే ఎంత నిధులు దేనికి, ఆ నిధుల యాజమాన్యం కొరకు ఎట్లాంటి సంస్థ ఉండాలి, సంస్థాగత వ్యవస్థ ఉండాలి, ఇవన్నిటిని టెక్నికల్ నెగోషియేషన్స్గా సాంకేతిక అంశాలుగా చేస్తున్నారు. వాటి మీద చర్చ జరుగుతుంది. అది ఎప్పటి నుంచో జరుగుతుంది. ఇంకా ఒక అందరూ అంగీకరించే ఒక డ్రాఫ్ట్ రాలేదు, ముసాయిదా రాలేదు ఇంకా. సో ఈ ముసాయిదాలు తయారు చేయండి తొందరగా అని ఒత్తిడి ఈ COP27 ప్రెసిడెన్సీ చేస్తుంది. ఇదే సమయంలో మినిస్టర్లు ఉన్నారు అక్కడ. మా పర్యావరణ మంత్రిత్వ శాఖకు చెందిన వివిధ దేశాల మంత్రులు అక్కడ ఉన్నారు. వీళ్ళు రాజకీయంగా ఇప్పుడు ఒకవేళ ఈ సాంకేతిక అంశాల మీద ఒక ఒప్పందానికో లేదా ఒక దశకు అవి చేరితే వాటిని వీళ్ళు మళ్ళీ చర్చించి చివరిగా నవంబర్ 19న ఒక నిర్ణయము, ఒక ఒప్పందము, ఒక జాయింట్ స్టేట్మెంట్ ఇచ్చే అవకాశం ఉంటుంది. కానీ ఇక్కడ రాజకీయ చర్చల్లో కానీ అక్కడ సాంకేతిక అంశాల చర్చల్లో కానీ ఇప్పటికీ అంటే అది దిశ కూడా కనపడట్లేదు. ఒక దశ పక్కన పెడితే ఒక దిశ లేకుండా అభిప్రాయాల సేకరణ దగ్గరే ఇంకా ఆగిపోయింది. వివిధ అభిప్రాయాలు చెప్పడము, కూర్చొని వాటి అన్నింటినీ క్రోడీకరించి ఒక దగ్గర పెట్టి ఒక ముసాయిదా తయారు చేసే దానికి రేయింబగలు కూర్చుంటున్నామని అంటున్నారు. మరి అది చివరిగా 18 నవంబర్ నాడు సాయంత్రానికి ఒక ఒప్పందం COP27 నుంచి వస్తుందా లేదా అనేది ఇప్పటికైతే చాలా మందికి అనుమానం ఉంది. ఇప్పుడు చూడాలి మరి. ఈరోజు 16 నవంబరు చాలా ముఖ్యమైన దినం. 16, 17 రేపు 2 ముఖ్యమైన దినాలు ఈ సాంకేతిక అంశాల మీద. వీటి నుంచి ఒక నిర్దిష్ట ముసాయిదా వస్తే ఈ ముసాయిదా మళ్ళీ మినిస్టర్లు చర్చించి చివరిగా 18 నాడు ఒక కాన్ఫరెన్స్ స్టేట్మెంట్ వచ్చే అవకాశం ఉంది. సో వేచి చూద్దాం, ఇవాళ రేపు ఏమవుతుందనేది చూద్దాం. సో ఈరోజు సమీక్ష ఇక్కడితో ముగిస్తున్నాను. ధన్యవాదాలు.